And we're here with actor Ben Gazzara, who all the locals in Sag Harbor recognize as one of us because he and his wife Elke have spent the last 20-odd years living in Sag Harbor.
Right.
Hello, Ben.
How are you?
And we're here because you just did, besides all your acting roles, you've just taken on a new role now, and you're actually an author, which congratulations on your new book, Ben Gazzara, In the Moment, and My Life as an Actor.
Yeah, I tell you, listen, I've gotten a lot of good reviews as an actor. Never talk about them, actually ignore them. But my good reviews for this, I got to tell everybody, I'm getting great reviews. You should read this.
Oh, well, that's
You'll enjoy
fantastic. I'm sure you are, because when I heard you wrote a book, the first thing I thought of was, this is never going to be a boring book because you're not a boring guy.
And by the way, I talk about Sag Harbor, of course, in the book.
You talk about Sag Harbor. Well,
Yes,
I was
do.
reading the book, and it's 300 pages, and he has a lot to say. And right before we get into the book, I just wanted to mention that since people know you from the area, let's talk a little bit about how you actually chose, of all the places you could have lived around the world, why did you decide to come to Sag Harbor?
I had a great friend. His name was John Scanlon. John and his wife Julianne had just bought a house in Sag Harbor and invited us out for the weekend. And went out for the weekend. I'll never forget, the first night, the ceiling crashed in on us. Right, we got all this plaster all over us, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And my wife, the biggest good sport that she is, she said, I love it here. I want to buy a house here. John, are there any houses here? John said, as a matter of fact, a friend of ours was going to buy a house around the corner, and she didn't quite make it. You want to look at it? Now, I was going through a contentious divorce. My lawyer had told me, do not buy anything. Don't do it. She looked at this little house and loved it, and I bought it.
The one you just sold.
The one we just sold.
That's
yes.
right up the street from John Scanlon's fabulous house with the late John Scanlon, which he
Well, that wasn't the house he had when he first.
I knew the other house.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you that's how you got there, and that was how long ago?
24 years ago.
Now, since you've been living in Sag Harbor all these years, you've gotten really involved in the community, and I know you've been in some productions, including at Bay Street Theater, and you played Yogi Berra recently.
Yeah, we did it last year to great success. I had a really good time, a wonderful time. That's a great theater.
Isn't that a great theater?
That's amazing with Sag Harbor having that theater that has survived. You know how difficult it is to be successful with a regional theater. It's almost impossible. The fact that they've done it is a miracle.
Well, it's Julie Andrews and her daughter Emma Walton.
Yeah, and
it's quite a crew there.
That's right.
How
Sybil Christopher, who I knew when she was Sybil Burton, Richard Burton's wife.
Wow.
We drank together in the olden days.
Well, so how did you like playing Yogi?
Oh, I had a good time. Not only because it's good material, but because the audience loved it so much. They were another character in the play, you know. You see the handkerchiefs come out, women crying, and the men laughing, and at the end on their feet applauding, and what more could you ask for? I'm going to take it on the road, actually. I'm going to take it to Boston and Chicago and Scottsdale and
even Italy,
Stamford.
Maybe Italy?
Italy, no.
Not Italy? Just around the country?
Yeah, around our country, right.
You mentioned in your book a little bit about the Yankees. Are you a baseball fan?
I grew up a Yankee fan, a Joe DiMaggio fan, actually. But I got to tell you the truth. I hope people won't hate me for this. This year, I rooted for the Boston Red Sox.
Well, I guess they won't hate
Just my heart. I just said, these poor people, give them a break. Give them one, at least, one championship. And I'm glad they had it.
Allowed to have your opinion.
Yeah.
Also, out in the Hamptons, I've seen you a lot at some events, such as polo. You show up there once in a while.
Well, very chic. Well, I want my wife to wear her hats. You know, she looks so beautiful in those hats.
What do you think of polo?
And my wife knew a great deal. Less than my wife did. My wife, in a former life, which I don't ask her too much about, she was with the polo set, international polo set. She knows a great deal about the game. So
more than you?
Much more.
That's interesting.
Much more.
So you don't have you're not one of those equestrian people that loves to have horses in your backyard or any of that stuff?
I did when I bought a horse for my young daughter Elizabeth when she was 3 or 4 years old, and had the horse in my backyard on Coldwater Canyon in Los Angeles. That's right. So I lived with a horse, yes.
I've seen you over at Richard Extract's house, the publisher of some of the magazines in the Hamptons, and you were at a benefit for Mary Haven.
Yeah,
once.
how is he? How is he? I haven't seen him in a long time.
He's successful
He's still
out
there. Give
there,
him-
and he's out there. He has a real interesting house.
Give him my regards.
Yeah.
Yes, and an art collection,
Art
a
collection.
first-class art collection. Yeah,
Yep.
I remember.
And he does Hamptons Cottages and Gardens, which is a successful
Uh-huh.
magazine.
And then Betty Friedan lived around the corner from us. Betty, Dr. O.
Dr. O.
Dr. O is a friend. So many wonderful.
Lanford Wilson.
Lanford Wilson, wonderful people in Sag
Wonderful
Harbor.
people. Boy, I mean, Ed Harris.
Ed Harris.
Not
yeah.
Ed Harris. Tom Harris,
Tom Harris.
from Silence of the Lamb.
Right.
And everywhere you walk in Sag Harbor, you'll run into someone famous. Which
That's
is
right. And then,
amazing.
of course, the American Hotel with Ted Conklin, who became a friend of ours. Wonderful place to eat and drink.
Isn't that a great place
Yeah,
to
that's
go
right.
and have a glass of wine?
The best movie theater in the United States is in Sag Harbor. That guy gets the best movies.
The best.
Really. I don't know how he does it. But movies you've missed or you've read about and didn't see, he'll have them. You can pick them up there.
Plus, they had a whole controversy because they took the sign down because there was something wrong with the
Oh,
sign.
yeah, I heard they were
And now
doing
there's
that.
no neon sign that says the Art Deco Theater. Now there's no sign.
Why?
So they had a big benefit to try to bring back the sign. Something was wrong with it. It was electrically wrong or something was wrong and they couldn't have it up there. So now they're trying to raise money to have another
Put it
sign.
back, yeah.
But Sag Harbor is just a real interesting little village,
Yes, it
isn't it?
is.
With lots of writers and
Getting
artists
too
and actors.
crowded, though. That's right,
So why is it that you decided to
One
leave?
Friday, I got so nervous. Too many cars.
Too many cars.
Too many cars. God,
And it was funny because now since people know that you've left, we can talk a little bit about because unfortunately it's over, so people can't go.
Yeah.
But you had a great tag sale at your house. I'm sure it was bittersweet to leave your. And this house, I might add, was an interesting color green. Everybody knew your house because it
Yeah.
was this. Why did you paint it that color? I always wanted to ask you.
My wife loves the color green. So I said, why not green? Why must it be white? Why must it be brown? Let's paint it green. And we got some attention.
You did. You did.
It looked more or less like a Caribbean house.
It looked like a interesting. Was it an older house or just a?
No, it was a new Victorian house.
Okay. Okay. So, how did you feel about leaving, and why did you decide?
Well, bittersweet, of course. The reason we really left, well, we weren't using it the way we did, because we had bought a house in Italy, a beautiful paradisical place, and we were spending more time there in the summer and very little time in Sag Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, listen, Rockefeller might be able to afford 3 houses, 2 of which he doesn't use, but I can't do that. We got to do something here. So we decided to sell Sag Harbor, sadly.
Now you're living in Manhattan, and you go to
Manhattan and
Italy a lot.
Italy,
You
yeah.
go to Italy a lot.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Italy, Ben, your roots go back a long way to your Italian family, and your mother and father came over from Italy,
Right.
and you grew up on in Manhattan's Lower East Side of 29th Street in Manhattan. So how did that influence you growing up down in that neighborhood, which was, like you said in your book, a little village unto itself?
Well, it was looking back. It was so sweet an existence. I mean, everybody's mother and father was your mother and father. They were all looking out for you, looking out for each other. There was hostility between the Irish, who were half the population of the block, and the Italians. But we married. We fell in love with their sisters, and we had fist fights with them. And they fell in love with our sisters. And that's the way it went. So eventually we all became friends. It was nice. And what can you say? I had the boys' club across the street that saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
If it weren't for the boys' club, I would never have become an actor. So there it was, And we all need a helping hand, and that was mine.
At times you felt like perhaps you went to the movies to escape life, and
Well, yeah,
that's a
my
lot
brother
of
was
actors do.
my brother was in the army, of course, in World War II. I was a kid, 13 years old, and my mother and father spoke only the Sicilian dialect, and I spoke it fairly well, but not well enough to have a long conversation. So it was a bit lonely, and I think the movies were were a way of escaping, but also a way of dreaming, you know. But because by then I wanted to be an actor. I had done a play or two at the Boys Club, playing old Arabs at the age of 13, getting applause. That was wonderful. I said, maybe I can get off this corner. Maybe I can do something with my life, you know, acting. So I went to the movies to see how real actors acted, you know. Also those great actors I grew up with, you know, Gary Cooper and Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart and Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy and you name it, Cary Grant, of course, you name it. They were wonderful to watch.
Well, it was one pivotal moment that I think defines something in your book. We all have pivotal moments in our lives when we make major decisions, and yours was when you went to see The Glass Menagerie. You want to talk a little bit about how that influenced you in your life's choice?
Well, I don't know how many people know or have heard of Laurette Taylor, but she was a remarkable actress who had been away from the theater for about 10 or 12 years because she had an alcohol problem, she was troubled, etc., etc. But that performance that I saw at the age of 14 changed my life because I had never seen, I never knew that acting could be so simple and real, and as if she seemed to be my mother. She seems to be anybody's mother. There was a real person on stage, and that changed my outlook about acting because I thought acting was showing off, you know, showing your wares, big, jumping on tables, spouting poetry. She was so simple, so real. And so that I told the coach who brought us there to see that play, I said, I don't understand this. She didn't do anything. And he said, yes, she didn't do anything, but she did everything. And she did. And that changed my life, really.
And it was at that moment you decided to somehow, how did you get from that moment to like actually getting into acting? Because a lot of kids don't know how to even get into it.
Well, I was in acting, you see. I was in the group at the
Right,
Boys
but I
Club.
mean
I was
into
doing plays.
Right.
No, I bided my time, you know. I even hid the idea that I wanted to be an actor. Because in my neighborhood, you wanted to be an actor, you were a sissy. You were worse than that. So I kept quiet until I got to college. And then in college there was a group, I did a couple of scenes, and Dr. Weiner, I'll never forget his name, he said, you got talent, kid. I said, well, maybe I should try this. So I went to a place called the Dramatic Workshop under a German emigre called Erwin Piscator, a genius in his own right. And then I heard of a place called the Actors Studio. Why did I hear of it? Because I had you know what second acting means? I had sneaked in to Streetcar Named Desire with the crowd during the second act because I didn't have money to pay. So that's what we would see. We would second act. We'd see the second and third act and miss the first act.
Wow.
That was enough for me. I saw the second act. I saw this guy, Marlon Brando, on stage. I said, where does he work? Where does he study? And I heard he studied at a place called the Actors Studio. So I asked around. They said, forget about it. You'll never get in there. Never. Too tough. I had to hear that. I said, okay, well, we'll see if it's too tough. I got in.
And then that took off.
And that
the
took,
Actors
yeah,
Studio.
that's right.
And that led into a lot
And
of...
as a man, we did as a classroom exercise, and it was so successful we took it off Broadway, and it was a big hit, and it became my first motion picture, The Strange One.
Wow.
Yeah.
So once you got out of the Actors Studio, you know, what happens is, I guess when you get in the business and you start making the roles, one role leads to another role, leads to another role. I couldn't believe in your book how, you know, once you just get into one, you meet somebody, it's just a matter of meeting the right people and people like you and connecting, and
Well, they gotta like you.
they've got to like you.
They can be the right people. I've met a lot of right people that never gave me a job. No. I was on a roll, really. I said, how long will this is so easy. Look at this. I went from one play, End as a Man, to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, a smash, to A Hat Full of Rain, a smash. I said, Jesus Christ, this is easy, right? But everything comes to an end. So the smashes didn't come. There were peaks and valleys in the career, like, you know, I write about them so that every young actor will know that it ain't a free ride. No matter how good you think you are or how successful you are, there are moments when things won't be going so well. So you have to be really tenacious and love it more than anything else in the world, or don't do it if you don't love it.
With Ben Gazzara.
I hold this with pride, because it took 5 years, you know. You think I wrote it overnight?
I was going to ask you about
Well,
that.
I say 3 years of avoiding the truth, 2 years of telling it.
Avoiding the truth is something we all
Well,
do.
it's tough. When you're doing a memoir, you know how tough it is to tell the truth? That's the toughest part, of not juggling around and saying, well, maybe I can say it this way, or maybe I can avoid saying this, or maybe I can. You really go through a lot of, and finally you say, let me get it out. Let me tell the truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're with the book In the Moment by
Right.
Ben Gazzara, My Life as an Actor. And I also wanted to ask you, why did you call the book In the Moment?
Well, you could say it's an important thing in life, but most important it is in acting, to remain in the moment, not to think of what you're going to do next, and not to think of what you just did, but to remain in the moment and to play the character moment by moment.
Wow. That's great. And why did you decide to write the book at this moment in time as opposed to maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
Well, actually, this is an accidental book, because the book I wanted to write was the story of my wife's life.
Okay.
She had told me a story about herself once, and I said, you got to write that. She said, I don't write. I said, well, you're talking. I got her some tape decks, tape recorder. She started talking. And then she'd come up from the pool and she'd play me what she said. And I'd ask her questions. She'd ask me questions. And I started writing what was interesting, I thought, a dual memoir, hers and mine in the same book. Mm-hmm. And we called it Conversations with My Husband. I sent it to a couple of publishers. They were intrigued, but they said it doesn't quite work. I don't think you can make it work. Well written, though. And when they said well written, though, I said, well, maybe I can write. So I put it away for a couple of years, and then I got cancer of the mouth. And I had a real 14-hour intervention, and while I was recuperating, before the radiation even, I started writing about this situation, the cancer, before, during, and after. And that started taking me back to my youth, and I started writing my memoir.
And everybody thinks of doing it, or people try to do it. Do you think it was harder than you thought it would be, or easier than you thought?
I loved it. Well, what was hard was what I told you, telling the truth. I'm not kidding. And what was hard was finding a structure for it. What wasn't hard was telling the stories that when you were really telling them, you know. Mm-hmm. And then I found I loved it. I loved writing, especially when things were going well. You know, they could sort of run away with you, free associate. Mm-hmm. I'd like to do it again.
Is this, you've written in the past, have you written anything before this, like
Never.
Scripts or anything? Or
Yeah,
just
scripts.
Scripts you've written?
I've worked on screenplays.
Right.
And that was very helpful.
Right.
That was very on structure, yeah.
But you didn't know how good a writer you were till you really sat down and wrote the book?
Well, I don't know how good I am yet, but people tell me I can write. That's nice.
Is your book getting good comments so far?
Great reviews. You know, as an actor, I don't quote reviews. I never have and never will. But I am going to read every one of my reviews as a writer. Great review. Even the Kirkus report,
I read that.
Who doesn't like and they don't like anything, gave me a love letter of a review. So there you have it.
Well, for some people who really love your movies and your stage and your TV roles, they'd probably like to know, of all the movies you've done, obviously what were some of your highlights or high point? What were the movies you liked?
Well, I would have to say my work, both for the quality of the films and for the relationships that developed, was my pictures with John Cassavetes.
Right.
Husbands and Killing of a Chinese Bookie, and Opening Night, and a picture I made with Peter Bogdanovich called St. Jack, which is one of my favorites.
Which you got an award for. And
in Venice.
And you played an unusual character.
A pimp.
A pimp.
But a pimp with a heart of platinum.
What about that role did you find like that was interesting for you, that you learned from it?
Well, you know, it was the second time that I had a hard time saying goodbye to the picture and the character. The character had become such a part of me, you know. I liked him so much as a person that it was very hard. And then I liked the people, Peter Bogdanovich and the people surrounding it. Just as I did with husbands. It was very hard saying goodbye to husbands.
You wrote a whole chapter on husbands, and
That's
you wrote
right.
a whole chapter on
Saint Jack.
Saint Jack.
Yes,
They must
that's
have,
right.
you know, meant a lot to you.
They did.
And John Cassavetes, in your book, you say that you were floundering, and sometimes you'd have these moments. Obviously, you talked about your depression, and that somehow he always knew how you were feeling, and he'd make you laugh and bring you
Right.
up, and he knew how to, you know, do the right things.
Yes.
So, can you say a few words about the relationship and what it meant to you with him? All
Well,
the movies
it got to mean it became the center of my life once I met him. We met late in life, actually.
How did you meet?
We were in our 30s. I was doing a television series. Well, I had met him in New York, but just to say hello. But out there, we were in our mid-30s. He was doing a couple of television shows to get the money to buy a little camera to do a film called Faces up at his house, because he couldn't get a job. 2 years the phone hadn't rung, he told me, because he had had an argument with Stanley Kramer. He had pushed him against the wall, and, you know, you got to be very bad. And I was doing a television series which I was not happy about, really, because it was really grueling work, the same character day in and day out. And one day he said, "Ben, did Marty tell you?" "What?" He was an agent. "We're going to do a picture together." "Oh, yeah, really?" I forgot about it. But then, sure enough, a few days go by, he calls me, he said, "You want to hear the story of our picture?" "What do you mean our picture?" "The picture we're going to do together." This guy was unbelievable. When he decided to do something, there was no. He did it. Whether the major studios liked it, whether they accepted, if they didn't like it, he put up his own money. It was extraordinary. So he tells me the story of three guys who lose their best friend, etc., and go off to London to sort of have a long wake, and it sounded intriguing. He said, "You like it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm going to Europe to do this gangster picture, Peter Falk. He's going to be the third husband, and I was going to Prague to do a war picture, and and I was there one morning, and it was hot, all the windows open, and I heard tanks and planes. I looked out, the Russians were coming into Prague, taking over the country, etc. And the phone rings, it's John. He says, "Ben, don't get killed. I got the money. I got the money." And indeed, we continued the film in Italy, my film, there in Rome, and so we started rehearsing Husbands, a film that changed my life, really.
That's incredible. So also in your book, I just wanted to compliment you. I think one thing that a lot of the readers are going to find interesting in this book, what I found interesting is just the candid honesty that you have in admitting certain problems that you get into, which everyone can relate to, of alcoholism, depression, loneliness. And it's not an easy, obviously, life to be an actor. All the traveling that you did, all the movies, the next picture to the next picture. And then what I think is really interesting about the book is how we look at that, and everybody's interested in movie careers, but also juxtaposing a personal life with all the distractions of such a life like that. It's almost amazing that people can have relationships in the movie. And the book's a good read because it's not exactly, you haven't had a boring life in terms of, you know, your 3 wives, the different women in your life, and you go into some of the relationships with exciting movie stars such as Eva Gabor and Elaine Stritch, and obviously Audrey Hepburn. So it makes for like, I mean, it's a book that you couldn't make up.
No.
It was an interesting life. There's your dog.
This
What's your
is
dog's
Maxie.
name?
Maxie's in the book. Have you gotten to her yet? When I
No.
lose her, I lost her. I thought I'd go crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
She's the love of my life.
Oh, honey, what's her
Next to
name?
you, darling.
What's her name?
Maxie.
Maxie. So, for people that, you know, obviously want to read your book, So Elaine Stritch, now she lives in the Hamptons. We know her.
No more.
She
She
did
sold
live in
her
Sag
house,
Harbor,
too.
Right, she lived in Sag Harbor. She's an interesting woman. She must have been an interesting woman to hang out with.
Oh, sure. She drank a lot.
You guys drank a lot, partied a lot. She's done well,
She was a champion.
right?
Yeah, she had a great sense of humor, ribald, but never vulgar. She was sharp. Yeah, a lot of people liked her a lot. She was fun to be around.
So in that kind of a life, isn't it hard to have like relationships because you're traveling, you're working, it's always just a little bit crazy all the time, right?
Well, you know, if you're deeply in love, I guess you can be a good boy. But if you're not deeply in love, and you're on location with this girl or this different leading lady or that different actress, it's very tempting.
Because you talk about on-location romance and
Yeah,
the pattern, the end of the movie, the end of the romance,
that's right.
which can happen, and it does.
Not only the end of the romance, but the end of friendships. You know, you work with guys, you get so close. You know, making a movie is like a honeymoon. And then at the end of the movie, you say, "Let's call each other." You compare numbers. Now look, now we're going to call each other. I'll call you tomorrow. Nobody calls anybody. It's just over.
Wow.
It's strange.
Wow.
But that's the way it happens.
So they all get close in the movie.
There's such an intense
Wow.
feeling, and when it's over, it just
You all go into different things.
yeah.
That's why it's good to have like the steadiness of somebody when you do find somebody you're in love with. To have that steadiness
That's right.
is a good thing.
Yeah,
You really care
for an
about it.
actor, I
For an
think really
actor.
important. Yes.
Do you feel it's important to have a steady relationship when you're an actor because of all this superficiality?
Yeah, you know. Well, it's exhausting, really. You know, I mean, temporary affairs take it out of you.
I don't know how people juggle all that in the crazy schedules.
Yeah.
But
Right.
well, say a few words about Audrey Hepburn as an actress working with her. You met her in the movie Bloodline.
Yeah. Well, what can you say about Audrey? First of all, she was a princess. She was so elegant without trying, so simple, so remarkable. She said something to me that really took me aback. Once we were having a drink at the Munich Hilton Hotel. We were doing this picture, Bloodline. She said, "You know, Ben, I never thought I was a good actress." I said, "Are you kidding me?" Listen, I'm going to rent 2 of your films, sit with you and show you what you do that any actress would give her life to be able to do. You know? She was so self-effacing, so genuine. You know? She was the real McCoy.
Isn't it funny, like, even when you were saying this, I couldn't believe it in the book. Everyone thinks, like, ordinary people just think actors are always confident in their roles.
Oh, no.
And it amazed me that you admitted so many times, just like she said she didn't think she was a good actress, that you would do a role and then everybody else would say it was great and you would say you didn't think it was good enough.
Yeah.
Why did you not have the self-esteem about your acting then? Because everybody else liked it.
Well, because it wasn't. When it wasn't good enough, I knew it wasn't good enough. That's all. I mean, it's just, you're reaching further, you know, and you know you didn't make it. And that's why.
Were you your own worst critic?
Yeah, well, I think so.
Really?
Yeah. And then, you know, basically, I think all actors are shy. They're good actors, usually. And they go into acting in order to be able to reveal parts of themselves that they can't reveal in life. But they can reveal them when they have other people's lines to say, if you know what I mean. They can reveal their own feeling, their own rage, their own anger, their own tears, their own laughter.
And we're joined with Ben Gazzara, the author of In the Moment, My Life as an Actor. The publisher is Carolyn Graff of Avalon Books. And it's a juicy book. It's a great read. And Ben Gazzara is a fascinating guy. If you like him in the movies, you'll even like his book because he gets into not just all of his struggles to become an actor and a good actor, but also the different marriages, the different relationships, the on-the-road romance.
You want to go on the road with me?
It's not exactly
you should
unjuicy.
go on the book tour with me and sell this book.
I think I would. I
Right,
think
right.
I would. And we've all seen him in Sag Harbor and New York City, and it's really fantastic when someone gets the chance to write their whole memoirs, and it's not an easy job. And I mean, I really admire you for starting out the book talking right about how you were trying to overcome depression, and you know, we all have stuff from our family, and you
Sure.
were even linking it to your father, who was a bit remote,
Melancholy.
never showed his feelings.
Yeah.
Lots of us have fathers like that, and that must have influenced you. And also, I think it's very interesting that you said, you know, your dad came here to try to make it, which was really hard, and perhaps he didn't get as far as he wanted. And did you feel
No, he
sort of
didn't. He
a
didn't.
pressure to get more in your life as a result of that, as a result of your dad?
No, actually, quite the opposite.
Uh-huh.
I inherited a lack of ambition. Somehow, that part of my father appealed to me, that he was not aggressive
Oh.
about his ambition.
Uh-huh.
And aggression always, for me, made me uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
So I did not really take advantage, wholeheartedly of what I could have,
You don't-
because of that, what I inherited, really.
But you went so far.
Yeah, I did. Almost like the accidental book is the accidental actor.
Oh, I think you went really far. I don't know. You think you could have gone even farther?
Oh yeah,
You do.
oh yeah.
If you had been different with your
Yeah.
dad, I mean, if you
I've
had
been smarter, more aggressive, more shrewder. Sure, absolutely, no doubt about it. But probably everybody can say that about themselves.
probably everybody can say that
So,
too.
yeah.
So does it amaze you how far you did go?
Well, I'm happy I went as far as I went,
Okay.
and I'm still alive, and I got the most beautiful wife in the world. So,
Speaking of your wife, Elke, you met Elke, and I think it's a great story of how you met your wife, because here we are in the book, and we all know he's married to Elke, and I'm going, all right, now we're...
Where is she?
We're on Ava Gabor, and then we're into, like, Audrey Hepburn, and then we're going, and I'm like, wow, this is great, I don't understand. And so, you know, we all think we're going to end up with perhaps Audrey Hepburn, but she was married at the time, and it was complicated, and, you know, I'm sure you admired her acting, and you were in the movies, and they made for great movies, at least, right? And we're all happy you did that.
Right.
But then I think this is interesting because you never know how you're going to meet like the love of your life, and it's a romantic thing when something like that happens. And especially as unexpectedly as it happened with this. Maybe you'd like to tell the story
well,
yourself.
Terrence Young directed Bloodline, which I did with Audrey, and he sends me a script. He said, "We're going to do a picture in Korea, dear boy." I said, "Oh, yeah, really?" "Yes, and you're going to have the lead opposite Larry." "Larry who?" "Larry Olivier."
Larry Olivier.
I said, "Yeah, really? Gee, terrific." So he sends me the script. It is dreadful. It is terrible. So I turned it down. I had really chutzpah. A lot of money involved. And he calls me. He said, "Now don't be a fool. Larry Olivier is doing it. What, come over here." I said, "Well, maybe he's right. Larry Olivier is doing it. I'll hide behind his shoulders and do something." And I went. And I met my wife, right? And I see a sign at the airport. And there's a group with a handheld, and the sign says Beng Azara.
Bengazzara or something.
So I said, "Well, that's cute." The Koreans say, "How do they spell my name?" Of course, they spell. Anyway, I'm invited out to lunch on the set. I go to lunch, and the other actors are there, but I get a gander of this beautiful blonde on the end of the table. Say hello to her. She said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't there to meet you today, but I have tonsillitis." I said, "Oh, how do you spell my name?" I asked her because I knew she had made the sign. Why, wasn't it? She had never heard of me, didn't know what I did for a living. And needless to say, I fell in love with her, and the rest is history.
That's so funny. Your wife, here you are, a successful, famous actor,
Yeah.
who you think everybody's going to be falling on your
Right.
feet. All the women are
Right,
it's
right.
going to be like a helpful
She didn't know
thing.
who the hell I was.
She didn't even know who you were.
Right.
That's like a great story.
That's right.
So,
Come here, Maxie. Come here. Just a sec.
Okay.
I'll be right back. No, just a sec. I got to do something. I got to do something for my wife because I love my wife. I have to do this. This coat, I want to announce to everyone, is designed by my wife. She designed door coats made in Italy by hand by the finest artisans. And they're for sale. She's on the website, elkeg.com.
this is
A warm hug.
I think this little sweater with this little.
How about that?
It has
a little fur.
on
That's
it.
real fur.
That is too cute. It
That's
matches
it.
his fur. Her fur. Oh, that's
All
so
right.
cute.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that for my own product. But I do that for my
So, okay, well, I just wanted to ask you now, this book, if you do get Ben's book, it is full of advice, and not really advice, but just you learn from your own life, you know, the mistakes you made, and you're honest about your ups, your downs, the depression is something. Do you think a lot of actors and creative people have this sort of depression because the job itself makes you have to constantly strive to stay on top?
I hope not, because depression is worse than cancer. Depression is horrible. It's just so hard, and that's why people kill themselves, because the pain is so all-embracing that if you give anything to get rid of it.
So you were honest about that, and obviously, you know, your struggle to find happiness, your struggle to get to that next movie, to keep it going and find the next role, and to have a happy relationship. I mean, it's all in here. There's also pictures of you as a little young boy growing up, and there's pictures of you. There you are.
My first communion.
Brooklyn. Not Brooklyn.
That's me and my mother and father.
Your mother and father. And there's great pictures of your leading roles.
Right.
There's one in Husbands.
Claude Rains, you're too young to remember him.
Yeah.
But if you saw Casablanca, you remember him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. And then going right along, the Broadway shows you starred in,
Sinatra.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which was probably one of your major moments there. And Shelley Winters.
Yeah.
And
Anna Magnani.
Magnani.
Yeah.
And this is a great one of you and Liz, your daughter.
Right.
And so your daughter and you are close, aren't you?
Yes.
And what else do we have here? Just lots and lots of photographs.
Right.
There you are with Audrey Hepburn. That's in Bloodline.
That's Audrey, yes.
This is a great picture of you and Elke in Venice.
Right.
So you love living in Italy too?
Oh, it's terrific.
Must be fabulous.
It's terrific. And we speak Italian, you know, that helps.
Okay.
And my wife speaks Italian.
It's a nice picture of you and Elke there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Very good. So Ben, for young people starting out in acting today, do you have some advice that you would learn from your career that you'd like to share with them?
Aside from don't do it,
Don't do it.
I would say that if you don't love it with all your heart, if you're not half insane, if you would really become insane without it, then do it, because it's a tough, tough profession. You got to be able to take a lot of rejection and get up off the floor and keep trying.
What would you
Good
say
luck.
from your career, looking back, was like one of the best highlights that you've gotten from being an actor?
Highlights?
Yeah, one of the best.
The way, you know, an actor cries when he doesn't succeed for 3 days. He celebrates for a week when he does. But the only thing you really remember as an actor is the work on the floor, the work with the people you really respected, the time you had creating the project. And I remember that with John and with Peter Bogdanovich and with Ilya Kazan and with Otto Preminger and with so many people. Left a great memory. I wish you all luck.
Okay. So now Ben Gazzara's book is available at major bookstores, at Amazon.com. The publisher is Carol and Graff, and it's Avalon Books. Thank you very much for joining us
Thank
today,
you.
and your dog, Maxie.
Thank you, Donna. Thank
Best
you.
of luck in the rest of the movies you've yet to make.
Thank you. Thank you.